So thank you for joining us today. This is the our session of Rebel One Live, where we interview investors and founders focused on building amazing companies. And in the impact space today, we have Kelley Cambry. She is CEO of Blue Studios, and I met her at 500 Startups. I saw her pitch as a I guess form ed tech entrepreneur. Was immediately loved what she was building. So I'm glad you're able to spend some time with us today. So thank you, Kelley.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad to be here.
So cool. So I'll give a quick introduction. So
Mhm.
Kelley, I mentioned, is CEO of Blue Studios, graduate of Howard University, serial entrepreneur, has started a few startups, and also is currently in TechStars, was part of 500 Startups.
Mhm.
She's killing it. So excited that you're here. I know I gave a brief intro, but could you share a little bit of your journey and how you ended up? Um, well, first, let's start out before the journey. Can you just share a little bit of what Blue Studios is?
Yeah, of course. So as overnight everyone became a homeschooler. And for a lot of parents, they're really struggling to find ways to meaningfully engage their kids and find platforms that are safe, that are entertaining, but like also like educational. And Blue Studios, we help parents solve that problem across the globe. So what we do is we're a managed marketplace connecting families to the best STEM instructors across the globe, no matter where they live, for just $9.99 per month. And we do this by live streaming those classes and letting parents and kids watch those classes on demand. Think of us as like a Peloton of STEM or a master class for kids. As I mentioned, we stream our classes live and we have everything from coding, microbiology, botany, robotics, you name it. We've got it at Blue Studios. And what we tell parents about Blue Studios is just to imagine a world where Netflix makes your kids smarter and YouTube is safe. That's what Blue Studios is and why we exist. And the where we get our instructors from is that we get really highly engaged, what we call skill-based influencers. So these are audio engineers, food scientists, chemists with huge followings. But on the other side, as we've seen, like a lot of people are having, a lot of those types of people are having issues with continuing to make money through this pandemic. So not only have we been, really helpful for parents, but we're helping people who have gotten, tons of gigs canceled or sponsorships canceled, really continue to, make a living through this crisis. So that's why we're so excited about being this managed marketplace, and just not that this pandemic happened, but more so that we're just being such a great solution for the gig economy, and also for parents who have had all their educational options like lifted away from them overnight. So we've just been like a really big resource for a lot of people on both sides of our marketplace.
Awesome, great. And
Mhm.
I've spoken to quite a few of my friends with kids at home now that
Mhm.
they can't go anywhere during
Yeah.
this time. They seem a little frazzled and are in need of solutions like yours.
Yeah.
Can you share more about how you got to start Blue Studios
Mhm.
and walk us to where it is today?
Yeah. So I am a third generation entrepreneur on both sides of my family. I also grew up in what you would call a maker space. So my parents own a marketing agency and production studio, and it was really in this like hands-on learning environment where I learned how to code. I also taught myself graphic design, and also just have how to be a lifelong learner. And then on the other side, my co-founder Emil, who also happens to be my husband, he's a son of immigrants from Haiti, and for him, they were able to get his parents were able to get access to science education very early on in their lives, which is very unique for them. And, when they got to this country, they became doctors. And so Emil knows the power of just having that early access to STEM education, because it afforded him and his, brothers and sisters to go to like the best schools possible. So when before me and my husband met, we both were doing our own to give back to STEM education. And so we both separately were selling, curriculum directly to school systems without, before we even met each other. So I focused on the K through 5th grade, focusing on like getting that early educational foundation in STEM. And Emil, my husband, he focused more on the middle, high school, and also like workforce development side, getting people to upskill into new, helping people career switch and upskill into tech fields. We were doing this separately, combined. We realized we sold over, $5 million it directly to school systems, our own STEM education curriculum that we built from the ground up. We've impacted over 20,000 kids in 40 cities. But one of the things that we learned from selling directly to schools were a few things. One is that you're limited by geography. So you can only, even when you get that great contract from that school system, you're really only able to serve the kids with who can attend that school system, right? The other thing that we learned is that parents always want more. They're always looking for the next step. So when we would run, our curriculum and implement those programs in those school systems, we would find that parents would always want to know, hey, this program ends at, 5th grade. What is my child going to be able to do in 6th grade? And the way that the school system was set up, unfortunately, we weren't able to service those parents in the way that we wanted to. But parents, we knew, always wanted more. And the other thing that we learned is that there is a lot of international demand for high quality STEM education. We hear that, hey, the US is far behind the world when it comes to STEM, but there are lots of other countries that want to catch up to the rest of the world as well. And when we, were doing our separate businesses, we would get reach outs from different, national departments of education from different countries like Kenya, places in the Middle East, Southeast Asia. And, while we were really flattered at first, we found out that implementing curriculum overseas in different countries is very difficult. And it's a logistical nightmare. You have to figure out like, where is the school? Where are you going to actually educate the kids? Do you have to rent out a location? Is somebody going to donate it? Where do you get the teachers from? Do we have to train them, et cetera? How do you get the materials overseas without costing you an arm and a leg? And, while we had to turn down a lot of those opportunities, we always kept it in the back of our mind, like, hey, if there's ever a scalable solution that we can come up with, we want to make sure that we're able to serve those other countries so that literally no matter where you live, you can have access to the best STEM instructors, best STEM classes taught by the best STEM instructors, no matter where you live or where you come from. And so that's where, when me and Emil met, not only did we quickly like get engaged and get married, but we also started coming up with a solution of Blue Studios to like have this like scalable model that can service kids across the globe. So that's kind of the long, short story of it.
Was that part of the dating criteria you needed? That he needed to be co-founder worthy? Is that the?
Yes, that is actually for both sides.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
No, before I go into that, because I would love to ask questions more about, that I think that is unique. We hear from some investors that, it's very binary. Some investors don't like that there's two partners as a couple actually leading a business. Some do. So actually, let's dive into that a little bit now. How has that been for you? When you were making that decision, was that something you did consciously, or was that something that just fell into? Yeah, if you can talk about that journey.
Yeah, I mean, for both me and Emil being entrepreneurs, we knew how important it was for your spouse or your partner to understand the entrepreneurial journey and just like how hard it is. And, being able, not being able to talk to your spouse or your partner about, what's going on through your day or like what's going on in your business can be like really trying on entrepreneurs. And so, I guess consciously and unconsciously, that's kind of what drew us to each other. And my parents, they were married, they were entrepreneurs together. My dad's parents, they were married or in businesses together. So I had more of a blueprint for what marriage and co-founder looks like. Emil didn't have it as much as I did. So I think we were able to just like teach each other. But at the end of the day, one of the key things that we always valued was just over communication. Like we just have to communicate what's going on through our heads, what do we think should happen next, and just like be able to solve problems together and come up with solutions. And that's honestly what any good co-founder relationship is, or marriage at the end of the day. And this idea that you can be an entrepreneur without it like spilling over into your family is false anyways. And so you might as well just, for us, it's like, well, why don't we just put the whole package together anyways?
Yeah. Can you talk about how do you create those boundaries? If you can give examples of that for other couples that are thinking about it.
Yeah. I don't know if we have that many boundaries, but might not be the best one to. But every couple is different. I've talked to other co-founder couples who've have these very interesting ways of solving problems, or if they come to a point of disagreement, how they have a way of mediating with each other, et cetera, et cetera. So it just depends on your relationship. I know for me and Emil, we just talk about everything all the time. And if we are disagreeing on something, we solve that problem right then and there. We just figure out a solution and we don't let it linger for honestly more than 24 hours. So that's just the way we work together. But I'd say you should really make sure that everybody's on the same page and like really understands what is on the same page of like where you're trying to go with something and like what it takes and how long you're willing to do it for, et cetera. So, I'm different. I've heard very interesting ways of people solving problems and like, I think I heard one couple say that like they just like turn off all the lights and they lay down and they just start talking. If they're like arguing, they just like turn off everything, lay down, and then they just lay down on a mat or something, and then they start like talking to each other until they like solve the problems. But I don't do that personally. People don't have to, but like I said, there's lots of ways to do that.
Appreciate that. Can you share what you believe some of the strengths and weaknesses of going that route? Of doing, I would say at a high level, doing business with family as a general.
Doing business with family.
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, it depends on the family. I think the biggest fear that most people have about doing business with family is that, are you working with people who are actually qualified to do what they're supposed to do, or do you just have them in the role just because they're your family members? For the way that I was raised in a business, is that was never the case. You would always have to, if you're not putting in your amount of work, like you'll get replaced in my family. So, and it's like nothing personal.
Yep.
But that's just the way it is. If you're not up for the challenge, like, we'll find somebody else to do it. And I think that's one of the fears that people have about family businesses. But again, it's not just me and Emil. We have other team members who we are not related to on our team who are highly qualified, and we all really work well together. And I think at the end of the day, like, Blue Studios is about serving families, and so I don't see how we would be able to serve families if we didn't understand the power of family in general, and just keeping that in mind at all times. So
makes sense. No, I thank you for asking those questions. For those that don't know a little bit of what, if you look at the research, you have founders dilemmas, Noam
Hmm.
Wasserman out of Harvard Business, well, when he was out of Harvard Business School, talks about, um, that warns against doing business with family. And then on the other
Hmm.
side, if you look at the sheer number of businesses in the world, most of them are
Yeah,
family-owned businesses, right? So,
they are.
uh,
Yeah.
so it's something to keep in mind. The world, it works in the world.
Yep.
And I want to shift gears a little bit.
Hmm.
You've been a serial entrepreneur before, started Page and Paxton.
Hmm.
Can you talk about a little bit about that and what made you shift from that to Blue Studios?
Yeah. And so, like I said, before me and Emil met, I was building my own curriculum company, actually with my mom. So, one of the things that, like I mentioned before, is that I grew up in a maker space. So I had the opportunity to basically learn how to teach myself technical skills. I had, my parents had tons of computers, tons of equipment, machinery, etc. And then I just used to tinker with it all day long. And that's how I learned how to code and taught myself graphic design. On the other side, my sister, she's a science nerd. She ended up going to dental school, becoming a dentist. She currently practices right now. She was actually just recently featured in the New York Times for her work that she's doing in rural communities, and just the challenges she's having with the coronavirus and staying protected, etc. And so, for both of us, what the reason why I started Page and Paxton and convinced my mom to do it with me is because of the way that my mom used storytelling to teach us and get us excited about really complex concepts. And for my mom, she's very unique because she is a technical person, but given that she grew up in a time when girls, especially girls of color, were not encouraged to go into technical fields, she never pursued that. And so she always wanted to make sure that that didn't happen to me and my sister. And so when I got older and realized, all the stuff that, came to those realizations about my mom and her methodology. And that was a time when, STEM was becoming a really big conversation starter. But when I was, helping and, giving back, teaching other people how to code and do other things like that, I realized that there was no early pipeline. The pipeline started in middle and high school. And by then, I noticed that, especially for girls and kids of color, that you basically had your identity set about what you thought you could do by middle school. Like you already thought you were a math person or a science person. And a lot of that identity develops honestly in kindergarten. And when I would talk around and talk to people about like going earlier, nobody wanted to do early elementary STEM at that time. And so I told my mom what I was seeing, and I convinced her to, go into business with me. It was a little bit rough, but I convinced her. And we started with one client. Our first client was Chicago Public Schools, and which was kind of big. It was the third largest school system in the country. That was our first client. And from then we just kept building the business to a multi-million-dollar business. But again, like I said, I learned a lot about working with schools and how to reach, and how I really just wanted to reach more families. And by the time I came to that realization, I had, met Emil, and we, started talking about this solution, which ended up becoming Blue Studios. And so that's kind of how that journey started.
Great. And I want to dive into Blue Studios. You mentioned
Mm-hmm.
it's a platform, so it's not only
Mm-hmm.
you creating videos, but
Mm-hmm.
other people as well creating
Mm-hmm.
videos on your platform. Can you go through that a little
Mm-hmm.
bit?
Yeah. So what we do is we're basically tapping into folks who would who are we consider to be like the best teachers for kids, but who typically don't get tapped on the shoulder for that. So like I said, we have folks who are influencers, which we call skill-based influencers. So again, these are audio engineers, chemists, even digital illustrators, food scientists. All of them have a huge following. They're natural content creators, but they have again never been tapped on the shoulder to come into a school because it really doesn't make sense for them personally and their brand. And so what we've done is we recruit them. They go through a application process. We do an automated training process, and then they have the option now to either record with us, or another thing that we just recently started doing is sending them their own kits to record at home. And so we're able to also stream them live. It's just a great way for kids to learn from the people who have those skills right now versus waiting until it becomes theory in a textbook and learning it later. Especially for girls and kids of color and people who are non-dominant, what we call non-dominant groups in STEM, this is really helpful for them because they can go at their own pace. There's no stress about like, am I behind everybody else? Do I know what I'm doing, etc. They can watch it again and again. We have the option for them to submit their projects, get reviewed, etc. And so, it's just a really great way for kids to get what we call those 10,000 hours in, so that they become an expert at whatever whatever their heart desires. And we make it easy for the parents because one of the reasons why, we interview our customers all the time over and over again. And the main fear that parents have when dealing with STEM products or education or kits is that, like, what if I don't know the answer? What if I can't guide my kid through this, Lego Mindstorm, putting together this Lego Mindstorm or whatever. And we take that stress away from the parent. So the parent can literally just like, hey, I set you up with your materials and everything, you can go at it, or they can do it with them and not feel like they have to be the main teacher at all.
Got it. Mm-hmm. And for you, can you talk a little bit? You mentioned as a founder, and I know I'm picking things because some of the people in our audience are not only investors but aspiring founders. Can you talk about how you see customer feedback continuously and integrate it into what you do?
Yeah, so obviously we have surveys, we do chat, we figure out any way that we can communicate with our customers. But also I make sure that I personally reach out to customers every single day and ask for some time on their calendars, like just 15 minutes. And just to talk to them about, not only Blue Studio's product, but just like, what's going on in their lives, just get like a really holistic picture of like who our customer is and who they are, what they need, what they love about Blue Studios, and what they could use more of. That just helps us to continuously like improve the product literally every single day or every single week. We're shipping out new features. And we're just making the product better. Our churn is already super low, but talking to our customers, in my mind, keeps our churn very low as well, because they know that there's actually, somebody who's behind the app, behind the website, and it makes them want to share, and refer Blue Studios to other parents as well. But you really do. I mean, surveys. Forms are great, but also getting on the phone with your customers, especially early days, is always important.
Yep, staying close to the ground. Great customer discovery. Also, can you share a little bit about your traction now? How many users do you all have on the platform, and how many countries and things like that?
Yeah, so we launched September 15th, 2019. And we are at a little bit over 2,800 subscribers right now. We've
Congratulations.
Thank you. We've seen 20% month-over-month growth. Unfortunately, through this Corona, we definitely have seen a lot more, a lot more traffic to our website, a lot more folks signing up. I think people were worried that we were hitting, the 6-month mark with a lot of customers and they were going to drop off, but we haven't seen that at all, especially unfortunately with this coronavirus and everybody having to quarantine and social distancing and everything. But and another thing that we've also seen between March and now is just people are watching more videos, they're watching more classes, so our engagement has been going up very significantly. We expect it to continue.
Can can you share what challenges the COVID-19 has
Mhm,
placed for you all, and what you did to
mhm,
adapt?
mhm. Yeah, so one of the things that we had planned on doing, again, like I mentioned, for our instructors was sending for our instructors that we've worked with a lot, is sending them what we call kits to their house. So this is giving them backdrop lighting. Most of them already have their own cameras, microphones, etc. And so this just made us go to that process quicker than we had previously decided upon. We typically would we have a network of studios that we work with where we can send our instructors to record in person. But given like just the seriousness of the coronavirus, again, it made us go to this send record at home process a lot faster. And we're finding it that it's honestly better for the instructors. It allows them, we don't have to worry about like studio time and like getting them in and out, etc. They can take their time with the lesson. They can, if they mess up, they can try to do it over, etc. So it just allows for a lot more flexibility, and we're also getting more and better content from our instructors. And our cost per unit for recording was already pretty low, but it's now even lower with this syndicate option to our instructors.
That's great. Like especially with keeping everything
Mhm.
under wraps. My sister also works in the
Mhm.
education space.
Yeah.
Delivered training. It was dance training more in person, and they're going through that
Mhm.
transition right now. So it's
Yeah.
amazing the how you can move to distributed production. Yeah,
Yeah.
entrepreneurs are used to
Mhm.
constraints and learning on the fly for sure.
Yeah, and
Uh,
we just want to make sure we're protecting our staff, our support staff, or protecting our instructors, making sure they stay safe and healthy. But also that, they're still earning money during this time because, as I said, a lot of folks had a lot of gigs, they had a lot of promotions coming up, and a lot of those companies have pulled out, at the last minute. And so again, not only on the parent side, but also what we call like the fair gig economy side that we believe in at Blue Studios. We're just contributing to making sure that people are still earning a living.
Yeah, and experts on your platform, how does that work? So they create a
Mhm.
class with you, and then how
Mhm.
do they get compensated?
Yeah, so we typically paid a day rate, and so we're still paying them like a day rate. That's still the same or more than they were making with us before, and then they also get commission on any new subscribers that they bring onto the platform. And so again, we compensate them for their time, but we're also helping them monetize their following as well.
That's great.
Mhm. Yeah.
Shifting the thoughts to, since you
Mhm.
work in the the world of digital education, and
Mhm.
the education system predominantly is slow to change, and
Yes.
now thinking about the future, where do you see it going? Especially I'm going to focus on your area, right? The you
Mhm.
talk about the K through 12 space. Where do you see high schools going, and education for younger individuals in the U.S. and around the world, or where
Yeah.
is it going, and where does it need to go?
Yeah, well, this is what we truly believe is that every day for a kid should feel like a makeathon or a hackathon, where you are able to build something new every day, like where you get a project in the morning, and by the end of the day you can have something to show for yourself, and it shows like a new skill that you developed, and one that you can like where you can watch and share with your friends and family, and get cool prizes for like completing projects and showing what you know, etc. And for us, we know that, and we also want to give parents a break too. We think that education should help parents, not give them more work to do, and help them, have the free time, but also like the peace of mind that their kids are, get being prepared for the future.
Great. So
Mhm.
and what's next for Blue Studios? What are your next milestones coming up, and how can the audience support you in that?
Yeah, so we're We're around the corner from launching a pretty big campaign. We're going to be, and I'm working through this with my lawyer, so don't quote me verbatim. Oh, there's me. Hey there. And so basically what we're doing is we're doing a campaign where we're going to send one lucky give one lucky family for their kid, for their child, an admission to space camp, which they can either redeem this year, depending on what goes on, or they can redeem for next summer. And so we're, the way that the kids are going to be able to enter is that obviously that they follow, tag people on Blue Studios online, or on social media, but they also have to do a project and share a product, do a project, complete it, and share it with the world. And post it on their parents have to post it on their pages. So that's something that we're really excited about. Another thing that we're working on adding is allowing kids to be able to invite just their friends to watch with them as well. So we're all about making STEM more fun, more social. We also just recently launched a rewards program where you can get badges. Another thing we're going to add is leaderboards. And so we're focused about just making things more engaging and fun, and just making them feel like a part of your life every day. So
Love it.
yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
thank you. Thank you very much, Kelley, for joining us. And for those that are watching, this is Kelley Cambry, CEO of Blue Studios. So check out bluestudios.io for more if you're interested in STEM education for your kids. And then also remember to join us. This is Rebel One Live every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Also on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll be featuring investors and founders making a difference and hustling in the space. So Kelley, thank you for joining us. And
all right, thank you.
Well, thank you. All right.
Appreciate it.
Of course.